Thank you, Eunice. So tonight, Leigh Singh, a recent graduate from the University of Toronto, will be giving a speech entitled Expectations, in which she will be discussing how our expectations can affect our reality and how we perceive the world around us. She will also be sharing the strategies she uses to manage her own expectations and hopes to hear about your own strategies and experiences. Please help me welcome Leigh.
Hi everyone. Okay,
Hi.
I'm gonna share my screen now. 1 second. All right, you guys can all see that?
Yep, we see it.
Okay, great. Okay, so hi everyone. I really wanted to talk about this topic today because the idea of expectations, they've kind of been weighing on me recently, and so I thought that by talking through it, it could be somewhat therapeutic for me. So I'll just get started. So first, I'd like to start off with what expectations are in the first place. So expectations are strong, personal beliefs about what will occur in the future. They can be based on our prior experiences, knowledge on a subject, cultural norms, fears, or even a combination of these things. They can help guide our behaviors, and they serve to make our life more predictable, and therefore more comfortable. So for example, there are certain societal expectations that we share for how to act in a restaurant. So it's expected that we wait to be seated by a server, we read over the menu, we order, we wait for our food to arrive. However, it'd be unexpected if someone were to walk into the kitchen, start cooking their own meal, and then ate it off of the floor. This would probably make the other guests and staff uncomfortable, confused, or even frustrated because these actions go against our shared expectations. And going against expectations means uncertainty, which in turn can breed negative emotions like fear, discomfort, disappointment, or even anger. Our expectations can also have an impact on our senses and therefore shape how we perceive reality. So the placebo effect is probably one of the most well-known examples of how one's expectations can affect their life outcomes. So just to refresh everyone's minds, the placebo effect occurs when some people report feeling better or experiencing some type of health benefit after believing that they were given a real substance or treatment, when in fact they were given an inactive substance, like a sugar pill, for example, that actually does nothing to target their illness or condition. And a large reason for why this may occur has to do with the patient's own expectations that the treatment that they're given will work, either because they trust in their doctors or they're even aware of their doctor's own positive expectations. So I also wanted to show you guys another example of how our expectations can impact our senses and help us to make sense of the world around us. So in this example, is how our expectations can impact what we see. So if I were to ask you guys, what do you see in this picture? That is, what do you expect is going on behind the tree stump? So your first thought would probably be that there are two sticks that are behind the stump. They are crossing over one another, right? You guys kind of see that? Because we can rely on our prior knowledge of how sticks or branches look to make an assumption. So like the fact that sticks are relatively straight, or that they have a wider end and a more tapered end. And through past experiences and knowledge, we also recognize that it's highly probable that things that are arranged in a line are more related to one another than things that aren't. And that's why if I told you that you were wrong and that this is what was going on behind the tree stump, you'd probably feel a little confused, maybe even a little disappointed. And that's because it went against our expectations for how the world should be. So all this is to say that our expectations can impact our reality, and that as a result, the types of expectations that we hold about ourselves, other people, or certain events can contribute to both positive and negative outcomes in our lives. So naturally, the next big question that I had was which type of expectation, either high or low expectations, would be more likely to lead to a positive life outcome. So, which as it turned out was kind of a difficult question to answer because I kept coming across conflicting viewpoints. So on one hand, I found phrases like shoot for the stars and quotes like this one by Charles Kettering. And he said, high achievement always takes place in the framework of high expectation. And I actually even found this interesting research study in which these two researchers, they made all students in this primary school take an intelligence test. And then they just randomly selected just a random group of the students, and they told their teachers that these students scored in the top 20%, and that meant that they were exceptional and they'd achieve high results when they were retested later on in the year. And sure enough, they found that 8 months later, when all the students were retested, the so-called gifted students actually performed significantly higher than everybody else. And so this idea that achievement is associated with the high expectations others place on us is also known as the Pygmalion effect. And the explanation for this being that if someone believes that we will succeed, they'll treat us differently to help us achieve those goals. So like in this experiment, the teachers believed that these students were high achievers. And so they gave these students more detailed feedback on how to improve, and they provide more opportunities for these students to respond and engage with the material. And so in turn, we will change our own thought behaviors to try to meet their expectations and eventually prosper. So it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way. However, on the other hand, I came upon quotes like this one here by Barry Schwartz, who's an American psychologist. And he said, the secret to happiness is low expectations. And similarly, there's this quote here by Sylvia Plath that says, if you expect nothing from somebody, you're never disappointed, suggesting that having low expectations is connected to self-preservation in a way. So which is better? Having high expectations that you can strive towards, but may lead to disappointment if not reached? Or is it having low to no expectations and being happy with any achievement, no matter how small, but this may mean selling yourself short sometimes? Well, in my opinion, I think the question should actually be shifted to what is your mindset upon not meeting an expectation? So how open and accepting are you to other potential outcomes that you didn't expect? Do you resort to blaming and putting yourself down? Do you blame outside factors and give up? Or are you flexible and able to adapt to new situations that, although weren't expected, is your reality now? And I think another thing to consider when focusing on wanting a positive outcome is that expectations aren't everything. And although it's the focus of my presentation today, and I just went through what it is and its ability to affect our reality, I think we should reframe the idea of expectations as a tool that we can use to help us navigate the world and uncertainty, but to also keep in mind that it is just one of many factors that can contribute to your future. And that ultimately through your actions, your mindset, your morals, and even having the courage to challenge expectations, you'll continue to learn and grow in the present. So going off of the same vein of flexibility and being a flexible thinker, flexible thinking is actually the first strategy that I wanted to touch on when I think of some of the ways that I try to manage my own expectations. So flexible thinking is basically the ability to think about things in a new or different way so that when things don't go as expected, you're able to either change your vision or think of alternative methods to get your desired outcome. Another strategy is to focus on what you can control rather than what you can't. And again, it's normal to be uncomfortable with uncertainty and the unknown. But by focusing your energy and efforts onto the things that you can change only increases your chances of having more positive outcome. And it doesn't cause you unnecessary stress as well. Next is to try to think objectively, which can be really hard for me. But I try to take my own personal feelings on the matter out of the equation just for a bit so that I can think as rationally as possible and make more realistic expectations. Because sometimes when we're very emotionally invested in an idea or thought, it may lead us to expect that either one extreme or the other will occur. So, we may expect the absolute best case scenario to happen, or it's the absolute worst. And we don't really consider anything in between. But if we step back and remove some of that emotion, we can usually expect the outcome to fall somewhere in the middle. My last strategy is to really think about where this expectation came from. Was it your own, or was it placed on you by someone else? Is it based in fact, knowledge, or past experience, or is it rooted in fear or anxiety? All of these questions are important to consider when thinking about which expectations you want to uphold in life and which you want to challenge as you move forward. So that brings me to the end of my speech, but I hope that some of you have taken away something from today, and I look forward to hearing you guys, reflect on your own expectations if you'd like, or share some of the strategies that you find useful when managing your expectations. So thank you everyone for listening.